Hi and welcome to the SohoLIFF Spotlights. I'm Liz Farah-Hardy and I am delighted to be joined today by the wonderful Steve Dixon, who is a specialist media consultant and actually, in fact, a locations guru as well. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Liz. Thanks very much for inviting me. Thank you. Cheers. Pleasure.
And could you just explain for everybody watching, what is a specialist media consultant?
Very good question, actually. It's one
Yeah.
that's very quite difficult to answer. Obviously, the specialist media consultant, it's come in a way where it's trying to elaborate on what I do in the past, what I've done in the past. Obviously, working with the Metropolitan Police, it's providing advice and guidance and consultation to film and TV productions in the UK, filming complex location shoots, guns, violence, filming with tracking vehicles. So I basically provide them with that consultation and advice, and that's where the specialist side of it comes into, really.
So it's a pretty important stuff. So
It is.
Just to quickly go to your background.
Yep.
So you, your background is as a policeman.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And so how did you move into film?
Yeah, fantastic question. Everyone actually asked me that question. I must give the answer over and over and over again. But yeah, I was a police officer from 1999 when I was in the Greater Manchester Police. Then I moved obviously to London and joined the Metropolitan Police in 2000. And I was an operational police officer, just like anybody else. You know, you cut your mustard in relation to helping and providing safety to members of the public. And then in 2012, unfortunately, I got injured whilst I was on duty, and my operational career was over at that particular point.
Right.
So there I was at Grove Hall Garage in Bow as a traffic manager, obviously helping the actual running of the actual base. And in 2014, I got a phone call to say, do you want to go to the film unit, the Met Police film unit? Now, I thought I was joining a crime CCT investigations team. There I was at New Scotland Yard with a guy called James Waller, who was actually on the film unit at that time. He said to me, Steve, you're going to be the new project manager for the Hendon filming project. And I'm thinking, I don't really know what he's talking about here. It transpires that he then went on to say that the Hendon filming project was the Avengers Age of Ultron shoot that we were filming at the Hendon Police Training School, and I was going to be heading it. And everything he said from that onwards, Liz, was literally going in one ear at the other, because all I could think of was I'm going to be working with the Avengers. And that's how it transpired. There I was at Hendon for over 6 months working with the Avengers Age of Ultron. I had no filming knowledge. It was the biggest location film set in the world at that particular time in 2014, with 8 purpose-built film sets. So, yeah, and that's how I got into it. To answer your question, yeah, it went from one extreme to being an operational police officer and dealing with members of the public, to then going into the film and TV industry, and I had no knowledge whatsoever apart from actually watching the actual movie.
That's so cool, though, isn't it?
It is,
talk
yeah.
about your path opening up. Because, I mean, you went from the Avengers to then working on things like the Bond movies,
Yes.
Mission Impossible,
Correct,
even
yeah.
The Bodyguard.
That's correct, yeah.
Like, all just, I love all of these. I mean, like, when you're working with that kind of level, those sort of like big films,
Yeah.
does that make it, I mean, like with Mission Impossible, and you've got, like, say, Tom Cruise, does that mean that actually when you go and ask for these locations and these different things, that everyone's bending over backwards to make it happen? Or is it actually harder? Is it actually Mission Impossible?
Well, I mean, it's difficult. Filming in London or filming anywhere in the UK, it is quite complex, obviously, for locations managers, supervisor managers to actually get these locations over the finishing line in the first place. And for a location to be approved, there's a lot of work that needs to be involved. You know, say, for instance, you mentioned, obviously, Mission Impossible or The Bodyguard. They've got scenes which are going to be potentially quite alarming for members of the public. You know, you could have Tom Cruise running across central London, Piccadilly, which he did in live footfall, or he could have a firearm in his hand. All these particular scenes, and it's the collective as a production coming together and getting that storyboard, and then finding a location, speaking to the relevant authorities to see if that particular location is fit for purpose. And then contacting the police, as when I got involved, they would describe to me what Tom would be doing with the gun, and then coming up with a viable plan to make it happen. And yes, I used to bend over backwards to try to make it happen. Not all the time. Sometimes you have to advise them that maybe this isn't a good idea, but there is a plan B. And that's really how I got my name, because I tried to make it possible as much as I possibly could.
Can I just ask, right? So you say you've got Tom Cruise, and he's going to run through with some massive, great big gun, and he's going to run through Piccadilly Circus.
Yeah.
I mean, there's quite a few people in London's West End.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you go about clearing?
Well, that particular shoot, I can't remember which one it was. It was the Mission Impossible before number 8, which is obviously due to come out very, very soon, I believe. There's a scene in Piccadilly where he was running through Piccadilly all by himself. So we had the location obviously secured by Westminster City Council and Transport for London. There was cameras, point of view cameras, static cameras high above as well as on the ground. Yeah. And we were just playing it as Tom was running from one location as if he's being chased or going somewhere, right across live roads. Members of the public are going about their business. And it worked absolutely fantastically. If that answers surprise. Yeah, there was no sort of control in those sort of elements, apart from the fact that we knew that Tom was running across these certain streets in Shaftesbury and obviously around Piccadilly Circus. And there's images online. I don't know if you've seen these images where you've got Tom running across. There's a bus actually stopping for him as he runs across the road, and it's all part of the movie. And it gives that element of authenticity, you know. But yeah, it's really, really complex. I mean, I remember when they come to me about that and how we're going to make it happen, and it just worked.
Wow. How many takes did that take, though?
I can imagine. Well, obviously, we like to think it was a one-trick pony, but no. I mean, obviously, as you know, with filming, it goes over and over and over again, and that doesn't include the rehearsals. You know, let's rehearse. We're rehearsing, and then eventually they actually get the shot that they wanted. But no, it was a fair few takes I was taking that one.
And of course, explosions.
Yes.
How do you deal with that? How do you do those?
Well, obviously, explosions. There was, I don't know if you remember the film The Foreigner with Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan that I worked on. That ended up being quite a controversial one, really, which changed the path in how the police and the local authorities deal with special effects.
Right.
Obviously, with The Foreigner, they come to us and basically told us that we're going to be doing a certain scene on Waterloo Bridge where a bus is going through. There'll be a smallish sort of explosion on the top deck of a bus, and obviously to get that over the finishing line, you need to close the bridge off, you need to speak to outside agencies, you need to let the London Authority aware, because obviously river traffic, specialist police departments, the helicopter was aware, the marine support unit is aware, so everyone knew what was really going on. But on the actual day itself, the explosion was a hell of a lot bigger than what was anticipated. There are scenes of it obviously online. It was a massive explosion, and because it was bigger than what we were anticipating, the dynamics of the communications totally changed from a film set to potentially being a terrorist incident. So it went sort of in a different path, unfortunately. So the way that we dealt with it from then onwards was we as a police service would ask more information with regards to the pyrotechnics. How many times you're going to be doing the pyrotechnic? How big is the smoke, the fireball going to be? What sort of smoke? What sort of direction the smoke's going to be? Frequency of the explosion. How many times do you want to do it? Once, twice, 3 times? And then we would put an intelligence report on when we was in the police to let the local authorities know that they're going to be doing it, say, for instance, between 10 and 10 past 10. And we know exactly when it's going to happen, and the police will be obviously radio through to say, listen, this explosion is going to be going off. And the decibel readings as well, Liz, is a massive one, you know, actually finding out how loud it's going to be. It's not easy, but again, anything is possible with the right planning and proper implementation. But yeah, explosions are obviously, it's all part of the fun, isn't it, really?
So I guess this isn't like low budget stuff.
Well, no, I mean, there was another shoot at Canary Wharf, or just in the distance of Canary Wharf, which was a huge explosion. And as I said, it's they come to us when I was in the police, or if I'm not, they'll come to me now as a private consultant and tell us what you want to do, and then it's a question of coming up with a viable plan which is safe for the crew, safe for members of the public, and that there's no sort of hidden surprises. But yeah, I've dealt with a lot of explosions over the time.
And what about drones? Because that's like more and more people are getting drones now.
Yes.
And like, there's pockets, isn't there, that you're allowed to
Yes,
do
that's
it?
correct. That's correct. It's
Yeah.
drones are coming more and more popular. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember a good few years ago. Obviously, drones were like no chance. There's no way that we're going to allow a drone in central London because of the safety aspects and trying to get the permissions over the line. But then we had a shoot. It was Jack Ryan. That we filmed in Leicester Square.
Right.
Massive old drone, and we managed to get permissions in place. Westminster were all happy for it. And yeah, we had a huge drone take off from Leicester Square. It was given a view of a shooting taking place in one of the restaurants. All locked down. Members of the public were fully aware of it. But the drone aspects, there's a lot of legal side of it in legislation. And as long as the drone operator is licensed and knows what they're doing, and they've get their proper permissions in place, Liz, then it really isn't too much of a problem. But
Right.
it's still work in progress, but it's a lot more easier now to work with drones in London.
So, like for like indie filmmakers
Yep.
and short films and things like that, would it now become more viable for them to be able to use a drone, say in central London, or is it still quite like a lot of money tied up with doing it?
Well, no, I mean it's as I said, it's the drone operator's responsibility to make sure that first of all they're trained to fly the drone, have the necessary equipment and safety equipment to fly the drone, and in working with a production to get an idea of what the drone operator needs to do. So you find a location. There's certain locations in London which are restricted airspace. You can't just
That's
So
but how do they go about finding that? Who do
Well,
they go to?
if a drone operator wants to fly in restricted airspace, you've got City of Westminster, you've got Canary Wharf, and you've got another area which I'm trying to wrap your brains. Obviously, where it is, it's going to totally out of my brain now. Yeah. The drone operator will file a flight plan through to NATS and the CAA, Civil Aviation Authority, and then the location will be pinpointed as being restricted airspace.
Right.
That then gets sent to the Metropolitan Police Protective Security Operations team, who would then look at it and give an agreement in principle to say you can fly on that particular day with these strict conditions. And it's down to the drone operator on the day to make a phone call 60 minutes before they're supposed to take off to see if that flight is still viable, because obviously things can change. You could have a VIP coming in Westminster there, wherever it may be, which the police would then say, unfortunately, your drone shoot is not, and that's only ever happened once in all my career of being in filming since 2014. It's only ever happened once where the police have stepped in and said, no, you can't
God,
drone.
though, all the prep that goes.
I know, and I know. Unfortunately, it's just it. And then they're obviously the production are asking for the insurance sort of side of things. How do we sort of claim back? But
Do you deal with that as well?
thankfully, no, I don't.
That's a new media
Yeah,
consultancy.
exactly. Yeah, someone else deal with that, in my opinion. But no, it's drones are massively popular now and a lot more easier to use.
And are you part of like the recce's as well?
I can be, yes. And that's is it. My job now is that I get called in from productions, come on a recce.
Can you just explain, just in case anyone's wondering, what a recce is?
Yeah, I mean, you have different types of recce. You can have a director's recce, a technical recce, locations recce, or a scouting recce. Normally, I get called onto director's recce's and obviously tech recce's, and it's a reconnaissance basically. Recce is obviously short for reconnaissance, and we as a production will go to a location where they're proposing to film. Have all the necessary stakeholders around, the landowners, the production, myself. You could have the police there as well. Mm-hmm. And we will discuss the options of what's possible and what is not possible. Yes, and I'll go on these recce's and I would say, okay, you want to film with a firearm down here. This is what I'm proposing, what you need to do. And they just take that information on board and then we go from there. And then eventually, hopefully that recce turns into an actual set date, location film shoot.
Cool. He's talking about like the firearms as well,
Yeah.
because that's a big thing too, isn't it?
They all want to film with guns.
Everyone wants to film. All short films, everyone wants to film with guns.
Sure.
But don't even like if you're doing a short film one-hander, you've still got to have an armourer.
Well, exactly. That's what the plan is. Yeah.
So, how big is? I mean, I've worked on a very small scale with them.
Yeah.
What's it like working on a big film like that? Like, how many people do you have to have in? What's the legalities of it?
You mean like the actual armour itself?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's no legal definition, or it's not. A production doesn't have to have an armour if they don't want to. That's
right?
It is, yes. I mean,
after
Rust.
Yeah.
It's actually, yeah, I was going to get into the Alec Baldwin, obviously, situation very, very briefly. But no, I mean, say, for instance, you could have in the past, I've worked a lot with students and still do work with students. You know, I do talks I go to colleges, universities across London and the home counties, and hopefully a bit further now. And I do talks about filming with guns and the do's and the don'ts, filming with violence and things like this. So you can have a student production that will have an imitation or a replica firearm, a rubber handgun, which you can source that online, no problem at all. So they've sourced it. There's going to be no armour on location. So they are responsible for that rubber handgun. You know, it's transportation to and from home to the location and back again. So it is a huge responsibility that I say we, I'm not in the police anymore, but I still propose and try to tell them, don't put yourself in those situations, you know. Get yourself an armourer, but it's all about budgets, isn't it, as well? Budgets are a big thing. So on the big shoots, like the ones I'm working on at the moment, yes, they will have an armourer. And post-Rust, because obviously the Rust incident was in the States, their legislation, their guns legislation laws are a hell of a lot different to what it is here in the UK.
Everyone have one.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. Obviously, with regards to personal safety and obviously using reasonable force to protect yourself and your family and your home, it's a lot different here. You obviously for a real firearm you need a firearms license or a shotgun license, you know, with regards to the law. But with regards to there's different types of imitation firearms. You know, you have a realistic imitation firearm which is so real you can't tell it difference from a real one, and then you have your real practical firearms which are used for filming. You know, they don't have any live ammunition, obviously. They have blank fire and adapters inside it to prevent obviously that happening. But these big shoots that I'm working on at the moment, they could have, say, for instance, 30-odd firearms with them, you know, automatic weapons. And one armourer isn't going to cut the mustard. No. One armourer to 30 guns, the ratio doesn't work. So on something like that, they have to like 3 or 4 armourers, obviously, just to manage. They come on location and they will tell the people that are handling it, the cast and crew, you should really get training before on handling of the actual firearm. But they'll get the do's and the don'ts. And obviously, if I'm on location, because I will go on location as well. The production will invite me, which I'm doing at the moment,
right,
to be a sort of consultant liaison with the police that are on location and with the production, and just keeping an eye on things, really.
So you're like the person that kind of just makes sure that everything's happening, so the actors can actually do their prep, the director can do their job.
Bit of a snoop, really. I'll go around. I mean, as I say, the production working at the moment, they've got supporting artists dressed as police, and, you know, supporting artists that like they wear the police uniform. They love it. They love the power that it brings. Sometimes they get a little bit over excited, and you know, the next minute, you know, you could have one of them that starts walking off set. Well, that's an offence for starters. You know, it's an impersonating a police officer.
But do you?
I will. So again, as an example, just recently there have been about 20 odd essays, all dressed as police. Some are firearms, dressed as firearms police officers. Some as patrol and traffic. I would get them all together before filming starts, and I give them a briefing on the do's and the don'ts, i.e. if you're dressed as a police officer in uniform, members of the public will expect you to act like a real police officer. So, you know, no walking around and smoking or doing anything that you shouldn't be doing.
Big joy.
No,
yeah.
that would look really bad when it, you know, having an essay dressed as police with a split in his mouth or her mouth. But no, it's very important. You know, as I said, I just think it's very important that you maintain these standards, because you can't just have people just walking off. I mean, going way back now, I think it was one of the Bond movies where an essay that was dressed as a firearms officer in the centre of London who walked off set with a firearm, went into McDonald's to obviously go and get himself something to eat. So it's those sort of things where
McDonald's offends me more than the firearm.
To mention McDonald's, by the way. But no, you have to maintain high standards when it comes to people dressed as police, firearms, you know, and anything else really.
There was a guy shot for carrying a table leg, wasn't there? Because they thought he had
That's
a
right.
firearm. Yes,
Very,
it's a
very,
little
yeah.
bit right.
It can go horribly wrong. And obviously, when I was in the police, we were putting on things called film weapon cards. It's like where you contact the police, and they will give us all the information about the actual firearm, where you're doing it, what you've got, what's the scene, and we put that information on a report that gets sent to the local police as well as the firearms officers. And anybody else that needs to know about it. And if a member of the public does see it and they do get alarmed by it, they're going to make a phone call. And instead of dispatching firearms officers to risk their life on a blue light run, then it will be downgraded and looked at. This is potentially filming. Let's not go too far with it, really. And that's what we do.
I was told recently at the during the London Marathon, there were some people shooting a short film.
Were they really?
Firearms, and they hadn't told the police. No. And a neighbour called the police, and they got basically had all these armed police.
Well, that's the danger. That's the danger, because obviously those police officers, it's a real firearms call.
Yeah.
And those police officers got to make a split-second decision of whether it's a real gun or not.
A little bit different, but what about nudity? Like in public. So we talk about firearms, and then, but because there's all these things. What happens if there's a scene where someone has to be naked in the middle of central London?
Yeah, as I said, it's you've got to be very, very careful with nudity. There is an offence of outraging public decency, which is a public order sort of offence where, if you see someone maybe totally nude and it offends you or whoever it may be, then they've got a right, obviously, to report it to police, and the police have to investigate that. So when productions do want to film with scenes of nudity, again, it's the same sort of principle. If you're filming with a gun or a police uniform or a police action vehicle, blue lights, is to contact the local police, contact the Met Police Film Unit, I should say, to describe and let them know what you want to do. We had a scene many, many years ago, not too far from here actually, where someone who was distressed in a pair of boxer shorts run out of a shop, run down the street, but there was no control outside. It's literally a live footfall. So a member of the public saw that, wasn't very happy, and went running, obviously, after him and grappled him to the ground. So you've got twofold there of being offended by it, but also maybe thinking to help that individual, because people with regards to mental health and things, there is a condition called excited delirium where you get so hot you want to strip all your clothes off. So you got to really think outside the box. It's if you want to do a scene of nudity or perceived nudity, it's not just a question of going, okay, that's fine, let's just crack on with it. You've really got to look outside the box to see how it's going to impact on members of the public.
Oh, it's all so fascinating. Right, so for anyone watching who is trying to make films and doing it on budgets, what are the do's and don'ts? There some bits of advice that you could give.
Okay, well, don't take it on face value that if you want to film with a scene of a violent scene or a gun or pushing, shoving, is in a public place. This is obviously in a public place. Don't take it as face value. You can just go ahead and do that. Contact the landowners, contact the Metropolitan Police Film Unit, or contact me, and I can advise them on what to do and what not to do. Don't just rack up to a location and start filming. Speak to the local authority. Some locations require a film license, especially if you put in equipment down on the ground. You are taking the area up from public spaces. So yes.
Can you clarify that? What does that mean?
So for instance, some borough film offices, with regards to the license, if you've got a crew of over 5, you do need to speak to the local authority to get a license from them, and they will issue a license to say you can film here between these particular times. If you've got a crew of, say, 2 people, but you've got a tripod and you put it down on the ground, then you're on public land. You need to contact the local authority to get permissions to do that. Obviously, these big shoots, 150 odd crew, they're always going to get a license, go through proper channels. But normally, sometimes it's the lower budget ones where they can sort of fall foul by not contacting the local people. And if you don't know what to do, then contact me and I can tell them.
So you're saying if they put a tripod down, what if they had a handheld camera?
Handheld would be absolutely fine, because they're not, say like 2 people, handheld camera, even if they're mobile phones. There's a lot of filming going on these days with mobile phones.
A lot with mobile phones.
That's absolutely fine. And it's not every borough is the same. If you go to Hackney, they haven't got this, I believe now, whether it's changed, but they haven't got this 5 persons or more policy. I mean, it's different. So don't just, my advice is just don't assume that you can just rack up and start filming. It's always best to contact the local authorities, the landowners.
Perfect. The other one, the Tube. What's the rules around the Tube?
Well, obviously the Tube is looked after by London Underground, and they and obviously Transport for London. They've got their own film office. They've got Red Route Filming, which looks after filming outside of the Tube area, and obviously you've got a team, two ladies who work and deal with filming for the London Underground. And you just mentioned that the production I'm working at the moment, we've just done some filming on a tube train.
Right.
And we was in a live station. We had a platform all secured for ourselves. We even had our own train for ourselves, which they were filming inside the train on an actual platform. But that was in the live footfall with everybody else.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, if you do want to do those sort of things, you just need to, again, you can contact me and I can tell you what the production need to do. Or you can go directly to Transport for London, speak to London Underground team, and they will advise you on what can be done.
And obviously, because we've got a lot of indie filmmakers watching.
Yeah.
Do you pay for that? Do you have to?
Normally with Transport for London, yes, there is a fee.
Is it a lot of money? Or?
I'm not 100% sure what the fee will be. I mean, you're probably talking about £100 or so, obviously, to get an application over the line. But you do need to make sure you do that.
Yeah.
If it's just two people, say for instance, like an indie or an unscripted sort of production, very very small, and you've got your mobile phones and you're filming on a tube, then as long as you're not causing any sort of real issues, there's no stunts going on or action going on.
Gone naked. Yeah.
You are going to get yourself absolutely slaughtered by the police if you go about that in that sort of way, Liz. Absolutely. But if it's just a walk and talk scene on a tube train or an overground train, as long as you're not causing obstruction, it's not too much of an issue. But my advice is always, if you're not sure, always contact the people that you think are the owners or responsible for that particular area. Definitely.
Oh, sorry, I want to go out and make a film now about all these things. So you've obviously worked with loads of stars.
Yes.
Have you got any gossip? Got any stories? You don't have to mention names, but have you got any sort of funny stories of things?
Well, I've met a lot over the years. Obviously, the Avengers were fantastic. I got to meet all the Avengers. I got invited to the rap party with Robert Downey Jr. And I remember standing was at studios next to Samuel L. Jackson, who's a really tall guy, and obviously I'm not. And he just basically looked at me and went, "Cool, you're a cop," because I was in uniform at the time. Woody Harrelson was absolutely amazing. I worked with him on the only live stream movie called Lost in London a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
And that was a real challenge because obviously it was filmed live and streamed across to the US whilst he was actually filming it. So that was...
You were doing
I was with them all the time, working with them.
That's a good job.
So, yeah, and I was standing... I was not far from here, actually, Southampton Row. Woody Harrelson was talking to me, and I had this guy standing next to me, and Woody was going, this guy here, obviously referring to me, has sorted this all out. Absolutely fantastic. I looked next to me, it was Matthew McConaughey was standing right next to me. I didn't even realise it was Matthew at the time. But no, gossip-wise, I can't really give you too many the game away on that one, Liz, I'm afraid. So.
I'm going to imagine bigger things now.
No, I mean, all the people I've worked with have been absolutely amazing. I can't say.
No, it's fine. It's honestly, this is just all such fascinating stuff, and it's so good to hear it as well. And it's really useful to know that actually, when you're filming these places, these are the people you've got to speak to, and this is what you've got to go and do.
It is. It's a real eye opener to be honest with you. It's not just a case of just putting a script together and going for it. You've really got to make sure that you do your homework and who to contact. And as I said, I've got loads and loads of contacts, not just in London, across the UK. And if you're not sure, just contact me and I can advise on what to do and who to contact.
Amazing. Oh, you've been amazing. I've
Thank
told
you
you all day. I'm going to be badgering you for stories, after this. So, if you've got any questions, get in touch, okay? Because this is the man that knows, and we'll put all the information and details there. But thank you so much for sharing this with us. Really appreciate you coming down today.
Well, thank you ever so much for inviting me. Really, really
pleasure.
Pleasure. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks so much.